is a second podcast looking at how faith communities can be proactive in preventing gender violence. So when was the last time you stood up and said it's time we talked about violence towards women? If you can't remember, you are not alone. Unfortunately, we hear all too often situations where good people don't speak up when they witness violent, tolerant behaviours. They look away, they're embarrassed, they don't want to get involved, they avoid it, and that stuff is the kind of stuff that allows violence against women to keep going. The most high-profile case in 2013 was Dinah's, who only watched as celebrity chef Nigella Lawson was assaulted by her husband Charles Saatchi, who later accepted a police caution for assault after the emergence of pictures showing him repeatedly grabbing Lawson, his wife, by the throat at a restaurant. Media reports made it clear numerous witnesses recognised the incident as an assault, yet none of them made the next step to come to her assistance. So why do good people fail to say something? Some are shocked. It's a shame, they think. It makes my blood boil, they think. This is between a husband and a wife, they say. There is nothing I can do, they say. I'm going to get hurt, they say. It's not my fight, they say. But if it's not our fight, then whose? If not the restaurant full of witnesses, then whom? I suspect good people do nothing because they mistakenly believe that they have only two options in instances of actual or potential violence: intervene physically and possibly expose themselves to personal harm, or do nothing. As a result, they often choose to do nothing. But doing nothing is just as much a choice as action, with often really serious consequences for women as well as children, extended families, friends, workplaces, and really the whole Australian community. Martin Luther King Jr. once said that what hurts the most is not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. There is a lot of media attention given to the high-profile cases of violence against women, the heinous murder of Jill Meagher, for example. But the reality is not just about this and other awful and horrible cases, but in the grinding violence which happens day in and day out in every part of Australia. In Australia, more than 100 women are killed every year by their male partners. The majority of their tormentors are not monsters lurking on busy streets, but their friends, acquaintances, husbands, brothers and fathers. Intimate partner violence against women has a devastating effect on children. They are the ones who live in fear of violence occurring every day, who tiptoe around the house just in case, who don't argue with or answer back to their parents like normal children, just in case, who grow up thinking it is okay to assault women or to be assaulted. Violence is a logical outcome of relationships of dominance and inequality, relationships shaped not simply by the personal choices or desires of some men to dominate and control their wives or girlfriends, but how this behaviour is embedded in a wider culture where violent and vulgar attitudes to women and children are common. We also know that preventing violence against women starts with modelling respect in the home. Parents often fall into demanding respect and forcing kids to comply with threats, punishment, shaming, bribes and rewards. We use various forms of our power to get kids to respect authority, but our success has been our downfall. We teach kids to respect the power and control of authority, losing sight of the more important goal of respecting relationships and respecting each other as individuals. As uncomfortable as it is to say, the church, along with other areas of society, have a very poor record of dealing with abuse. Too often, our first response to allegations of violence against women and children is to trivialise, minimise or excuse violence, and to shift the blame from the perpetrator to the victim. Certain sections of our church are treating women as inferior in the eyes of God. Yet Jesus never portrays women as secondary to men. Jesus overturned notions of female inferiority when he called women disciples. In story after story, Jesus oversteps social mores and challenges laws, scriptures, traditions and customs that separate and segregate people into acceptable and unacceptable categories, which determined who is in and who is out. Yet verses of scripture are omitted or quoted out of context by some to exalt the status of men and exclude women. This perceived inequality becomes the basis for an unhealthy view of male and female relationships, one that has been passed down from a dysfunctional and often violent patriarchal past. So what can you do to prevent violence against women? There are things that you can do every day. You know, intervening physically or doing nothing are not the only possible choices. So when your friend tells a revolting joke about abusing women, don't laugh. Say you just don't find it that funny. When you hear words, attitudes or see behaviours that put women down, even when no women are present, don't remain silent. Speak up and speak out. When some guy makes excuses for abuse and violence toward women, like they should know their place, I had no choice, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, everybody's doing it, don't allow it to be excused, because that is what is supposedly happens in our culture. There is no cultural prerogative for abuse and violence. When you find yourself or hear someone else asking why she just doesn't leave an abusive relationship, put the responsibility where it belongs by asking instead, why doesn't her husband or boyfriend just stop hitting her? When you hear the stats of the incidents of violence against women, pay attention. Don't get sidetracked by arguments that the reports must be wrong or that there are other issues that more urgently need our attention. The fact is that too many women live in fear in their own homes. The needs of all the other social injustices do not make stopping violence against women a lesser priority. It's only when good people ask, what can I do to stop gender violence, that violence against women and children will end.